All right, Pleasant, good morning. Thursday day, I guess it's actually day two. It's day one for us of Tappscon 2024 here at the Base Event Center in Waco on Bosque Drive. And Dan Morgan and I are joined with, is it your associate?
Associate director.
And you guys all four of you have, all three of you other than Brian have a different title. So I just try to keep them straight. But Steve Prud'homme is joining us. And Steve, we've had Joe on. We got Joe running on the screen back here behind us, but we've not had the opportunity. You always seem so busy at events, so you seem like one of the busier one of the bunch. But It's good to have you sit down and visit with us.
Oh, it's great to be on with you. And again, we go all the way back to the 90s. Like I said, John, I remember when I first got into TAPS and
go ahead and pull that mic there a little bit
a little closer.
Yeah, that's okay. Good.
When we got into TAPS, you were one of the first. I mean, you were it in the social media and the things that we could see. And again, we really did appreciate you back then and following through and promoting private schools and everything else. So it's a pleasure and an honor to be with you guys today.
Well, I appreciate that. You've been a big supporter of Dan, I mean, as well as Brian, and and in a different extent with Robert and Steve, obviously. But you've really been. You've really been a big advocate for us, and we really appreciate that. Talk about what's going on. I mean, how's turnout so far? And
turnout's been pretty good. We had a great golf tournament yesterday. We had 74 golfers, so we're up probably about 25 golfers from 4 years ago. That continues to go, and it's repeats.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing here with the sponsors. A lot of repeat sponsors that come each and every year, and we appreciate them. And Tappscon has just kind of grown and grown. We've figured out better ways of doing things. But the turnout, hopefully we'll get about 400 people here. We probably had 100 yesterday for fine arts. The new AD training was almost 50. So that's really good, but that also tells you how much turnover we have in athletic directors here in the private schools. But and that's something we're trying to help with. We're trying to get a little more stability. How do you find the right people, and how do you keep the right people? And that's the right people with some stability. It's going to get you success.
What do you think? So let me dovetail here just for a second. So given that you have and we see that year in and year out with private schools, but is that a higher number than normal, or?
It's I'm telling you, out of the 240 schools, we'll have between 50 and 70 new athletic directors year in, year out. It's just amazing. A lot of them, some of the smaller schools are always changing, but even at the larger schools, we're seeing that. And so we're trying to get that education and get them to where they understand about what the expectations and rules of TAPS are. But more importantly, what's going on at the school and who they are and what's their identity. That's one of the things tomorrow I'm going to be presenting with Coach Duckworth, the life of an athlete. And I haven't presented in 8 years since I got to TAPS. And we did this at Nolan Catholic. And we went to the National Catholic Educators Convention and did it also. But we did Life of an Athlete at a Catholic school. But it talks about some of those agreements and some of those things you can put in place, the rules, the values. And it starts with taking care of the health of the student, living a clean life, getting proper rest and all of that. And then we go about, your behavior and everything else. But it also brings in the coaches. All the coaches are committed. The parents are signing contracts and doing all that. And after a while, we don't sign contracts. It's understood. But at the beginning, you do. But it talks about this, and it builds that bond. But you're committing, again, to everybody's committing to each other. That's fine. But the strongest commitment, the strongest relationship is between the peers, student to student. And when you get them to hold each other accountable and support each other, that's how you build things. And it was one of the things that we had got going. And right before all those state championships in football happened, you don't necessarily – you get to win, and you get to win the right way because you're teaching the right things. And it helps all the sports and all the programs. It brings everybody together. And maybe you save a life. You don't know. The leading fatalities, of that age group is drunk driving. And be able to say, hey, we're telling you, that's the law, it's what you do, but you take care of your body. And we're here, and everybody has to look after each other. And so to be able to put programs in place like that, get the right people to do that, is something that I think is very important. And maybe you won't have so much turnover because, again, you're not getting paid $1 million.
Right.
Because again, my closing argument always, not my closing argument, but my pitch to a coach is, we've done everything. This is great. Before I talk about the stipend, let me tell you, I did remind you this was a ministry, and this is a great quality of life. Have you ever got that pitch to you? But it's true.
Yeah, no.
But it really needs to be quality of life, and it needs to be a ministry, and whether you're religiously affiliated or not.
Right.
As we were hearing from our keynote speaker, Wes, you can be transactional or you can be transformative. And again, if you're not transformative, I don't know why you're here and what you're doing. But if you are transactional, it is obvious in a heartbeat to those kids, and you just put limitations on how much good you can do.
A lot of younger coaches, as we go through the interview process and we bring guys in, it's exactly what you're talking about. They'll ask them all different kinds of questions. What do you teach? What's your philosophy in class and all this kind of stuff. And my whole question is, why do you want to be a coach? What is it that makes you want to coach? For me, it's a very personal experience being a coach's kid. But some of the answers that you get, that kind of gives you that idea of, they're not really thinking of it in terms of, I'm going to be here, I'm going to make a difference in lives. Well, if I get a job here, then I can move up to here, move up to there, and move up to there. And while I've been at a bunch of different addresses over the years, it's always been, for those kinds of reasons, for the reason of making a difference in the school community that I could go to and be a part of. So it's real important, even for coaches to know, what motivates them, what's bringing you here every day, and getting you to put that whistle on and walk out on the field.
That's exactly right. It's exactly right. And nothing's more rewarding I can think of than coaching. And your favorite part of coaching, the games are great, everybody understands that, but it's really practice when you get to go in there. I heard that and I thought that was the dumbest thing when I first heard someone say that. And then when I got more and more I got into it, I enjoyed practice and the interaction with the kids and getting away, but in the day-to-day.
I'm going to put you in the same box with a legend, because I'm driving up here and I'm listening to THSCA started a Coach's Call podcast, and one of the first ones they did was with Jody Conrad. I was listening to it coming up the road. She said the exact same thing. She said the thing that she missed the most after being retired was the practice. Not necessarily games, but the practice.
It's every day, and it's the road trips, and it's hanging out, following up with teachers. And again, but when you set a standard for the kids, and they know what to expect from you, because kids want structure. Y'all know that. Everybody says, no, this is a good. No, all kids are going to push until they come up against something. And when they feel that, they feel a little bit of, it makes them relax a little bit. They know that they're okay. They're secure. I know they're, and again, you need to set those standards and you need to enforce those standards. And I had a principal, Brother Oscar at the time, he said, I said, why are you worried about them buttoning their top button or making sure that their belts, they have a belt or whatever? He says, look, we're going to take them on at some point. I can either take them on now with the dress code, or we're going to be taking them on with fighting or something really bad later on. So set a standard, take them on, and then that gives them a sense of security in there. And you're setting that every single day. And like Coach Conrad was saying, every day you're there, and they press up against you a little bit, and they do that, because they do want to know. That's how they learn. They learn what those structures are, where the boundaries are, and that gives them, and the world starts to make a little bit more sense. And coaches can make the world make a little bit more sense for kids, I believe.
You mentioned about being in your role now this is your 8th year, and what's been that change been like for you, being out of the single school and then being within and having, that input with 240 schools as opposed to one?
You fall into doing a little bit of mentoring with some of them, but being able to talk, I get a better feel around the state with what's going on. I will tell you, there's not enough athletic directors. There's not enough really. We have a scarcity. There's a lot of people coming up and getting the right training and feeling like that. They need help, and so they need to reach out. It's one of the things I'm going to be doing a little bit more of, is consulting with schools and doing things like that and kind of sharing that. And we were seeing that yesterday at the golf tournament. Coach Doc, a couple of them were sharing golf carts all day long, but I was seeing the mentoring going on because I put a younger coach with an older coach and getting that. But that's what we're seeing as you go around the state. And I'll tell you something else. Nothing's harder than being an athletic director. Okay, you might see us every once in a while. We're dragging out of a track meet. We're tired. TAPS is challenging, but it is not as challenging to be an athletic director because you get it from all sides, all levels, and it's every day. If we get off the phone with somebody, we're done, okay? But an athletic director is dealing with that, whether it's a parent, it's a teacher, it's a coach, it's a kid, it's another school, it's the officials, it's all those different things. And as I stepped out of it, I gained a better appreciation of what the athletic directors do, and they are so key, you know. And so, again, I want to do anything I can to help them. And like I said, hopefully some of this at Tappscon, they can get out and enjoy themselves. They deserve it. They work hard, and coaches same way. But I saw that when I got into TAPS. TAPS is going in a good direction. It's growing. There's some opportunities there. But the world we're living in right now, there's change going on, and there's a lot of shaking around. And you know, you see what happens in the college might happen in the high schools. We don't know what's going to happen. We have a great talk coming up with NIL and TCU School of Business. They're looking at a curriculum for the kids moving into college having to deal with UIL. But if it arrives, when it arrives in Texas, let's don't do so. Let's don't deal with it out of ignorance. Let's learn a little bit about it. Let's see what we can do to make it as positive an experience as we can. People don't like authority right now. They question everything, and so we need to figure out better ways as we can lead as authority. People don't want to be told what to do. You know, everybody breaks off their own little thing and all that. So as organizations, and I say it to us at TAPS, and I'd say it to the people at the UIL, understand, you know, when a few people are making decisions for a lot of people, then that's a hard thing. You want to make sure that you're hearing them. You want to make sure that you're getting the feedback. But you also turn around and you got to communicate what you're doing and kind of explain the whys. That's why I like people say, oh, well, they're always asking you, you know, they're suggesting this. We already did that. I said, no, but it's an opportunity to say, we did try that. And we'll never do it again, or we might do it again, or let me tell you, explain this. But as a staff member, I don't make rules anymore like I did as a board member. So I get to say, hey, the board did it, you know, I'm just carrying out the rules. Well, no, I'm on the hook for that one. We made that rule when I was there. But
I don't know what those guys were thinking.
Yeah. But you're a teacher. You're always a teacher. We're teaching them. They're teaching us. We're listening. And again, I learned that from Robert. You know, as an ex-lawyer in the office, you know, he's a great listener. And and James Johnson, one of our board members, I said that to James. I said, you know, the lawyer, but he's a great listener. He says, of course he's a great listener. That's called billable hours.
Yeah, exactly.
I said, well, yeah. But again, you learn a lot more when you're listening, and if you can get people to speak. The person who talks the most is not the one learning the most at that moment, and so you try to get folks to talk. And whether you're, you know, we're talking here, of course, I'm talking your ear off because I'm excited about what I'm talking about. But whether I'm dealing with a parent, get them to talk, let's see what's going on, or I'm dealing with conflict resolution, or someone's calling into the office, it's important to listen to folks. And I say something to them that confuses them. I tell them, I understand what you're saying. Oh, well, then that don't mean I agree. I understand what you're saying. I understand your argument. But that's very important. But you always got to have that empathy for what they're going through. And I'm telling you, it's not getting easier. It's getting harder. And we need to do everything we can to support them. And I'm going to do more reaching out. And like I said, I think Joe and I both will be doing a little bit more consulting, helping folks and doing that, and maybe Coach Duckworth in their position. But if we just help one school, one kid, help one kid, everything's worth it. If everything you did helped one person, is it worth it?
Absolutely.
You better believe it.
Oh, yeah.
And whether that's healthy living or whether that's making good, responsible choices, that's kind of where you go for it. And you do as many, and you don't know all the good you do. That's the other thing, right? When you send them down the road, you don't know. And every once in a while they come back to you. And again, those kids, they remembered every single thing you said. Did I really say that? Yeah. Oh, yes, I live by that wisdom. Okay, yeah, I said that. Well, I don't remember, you know. But you make an impression on them. Like I said, I was driving to my house, and I live in a building downtown Fort Worth, but I was driving down this back alley, and there's a little door opens up, and it's an office. Well, anyway, they get back there, and they smoke sometimes. Well, anyway, I'm driving down the alley, I stop, and go, hey, Brian, how you doing? It's one of my old students. He put that cigarette down there. He's 45 years old. I said, man, you can smoke if you want to, you know, and everything, but they still have that thing, right? When Coach comes, they'll do it. Mr. Bertelson goes and sees those 70-year-old guys that are coming back, and they're, hey, Coach, everything. They don't want to, you know, they want to see it. But, again, you've made that impression, and they also have the stability of knowing no matter what happens in the world, when I go talk, you know, whether I'm talking to Dan and John or whatever, I know what they're going to say. I know how they're going to respond to this. And there's a great deal, that helps them to understand that. That gives them that makes sense of the world, because there's people that make sense. And so that's kind of my rambling philosophy.
No, that's great. No, I mean, and again, I mean, I know Dan and I both, I mean, again, we appreciate your energy. I mean, because again, I know when I go to a state event, you were all up. Matter of fact, I saw you at baseball. You were moving. I'm going like, I was there to see one game and kind of get home. I came up to see St. Paul and Mike and their girls playing, and I hadn't seen a baseball game at Clay Gould. So, but yeah, no, you were moving around, and your energy is admirable.
This man hits every stadium there ever was. I'm like trying to look around the state of Texas.
Well, you know what? You talked about passion, and I think that in all this, the voucher stuff, public and private, is what people miss in that is if they were to sit and watch this video, they would see that you have the same passion that a public school coach does. It's no different. And they sit there and they want to demonize private school for whatever reason, But the bottom line is that there's no different in the passion in what you do.
Correct.
I mean, don't get me wrong. And there's some on both sides of the house who they're there to get a paycheck, make a career advancement. But if you're coaching, whether it's in public or private school, most of the time you're passionate about something.
Better believe it. And guess what? I don't want to say identity politics, people have, but you're not a private school. You're Nolan Catholic. You're not a public school. You're Keller High School. And I dealt with every school individually, and who I dealt with, whatever. I didn't just take big groups of people. And you heard my interview. You reposted the one I had a few years ago. And that's the same thing. We get along.
Yeah.
And I know some of the issues that have come along since that thing gets everybody going. They just assume what you think. They just assume what you're doing. They don't know. And again, that's part of it. We pick. It's the merit of who we are, how we deal with people, how we do our business, and then we can associate or don't. But don't do big groups.
Yeah.
Don't do shotgun blast. That's silly and it's lazy. You need to get to know people, get to know schools, and make your own decisions. And that's how we've been getting along for a long time. Some of us guys have been around here for a few years, okay? But we know each other, and I look around and I see these folks, and it goes full circle. And you see it, but get to know people. Don't be lazy. It's lazy. And then that's what it really gets down to. And when big associations say things like that, they just don't want to make the effort to really,
Well, Coach, John and I were talking about this in our kickoff this morning. So we're starting to see some of the smaller schools having difficulty with their numbers as far as, being able to play 11-man. I'll stick to football right now, specifically, I guess. Probably the most demanding of the sports, but how do you see things going? We were talking about it. I kind of attributed. I still think it's part of the COVID thing. I think kids are less involved in general in extracurricular things.
Right.
But how do you guys see it going, into the future?
Well, you need leaders. You need leadership. You need a plan at the school level. And sometimes you kind of want to be able to analyze it and say why, and I do that, but then I pause. I don't want to make excuses for people.
Right.
If you want to do football, it takes a commitment, and you know that, and you need to commit it financially, but you need to have smart financial. You need to get good people in doing that, and it's going to happen. If it doesn't happen, though, you need to make a clean decision, and don't all of a sudden right before the year we're not playing. Well, now you've left everybody in the lurch. That's where we have to play referee a little bit on doing that. But I'm going to tell you something. High school football, as a basketball coach, but high school football, there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
And winning in high school football, there's nothing like it. And it brings the whole group together, but winning the right way. Winning the wrong way means nothing. Winning the wrong way, it's like losing the wrong way. Y'all are in the same category, okay? And you kind of get that moment. It's kind of like at the end of Blue Chips where he gets that moment, he won and then he felt bad because he won the wrong way. He cheated. I became what I hated and everything. But do it the right way and take care of kids and see them go forward and everything. But you know what? If you do things the right way, that's kind of an offshoot. All of a sudden you start winning. Your commitment's a little bit better. But that's where you got to get that commitment. And part of it's money. But I tell these schools, and they'll say, well, where do we need to spend our money? What do we need to do? And I'm like, well, let's first of all start with something that doesn't cost anything. Who are we? What do we want to become? And what vehicle can we use to get there? And whether you have something like the 3D Institute, Life of an Athlete, which we're going to be presenting on, which was our vehicle, and boy, it took us, didn't it? We had our numbers too. You had big school, and we had some transfers, but you know what we did when we have transfers? We didn't have many. You wrap your arms around them and you take care of them just like anybody else because you treat everybody fairly, not the same. Not the same. You know, they're all different. You know, some you got to holler at, some you got to go visit, but you treat them all the same. But they all know that there's stability there. They know what the expectation is, and they know that it'll be upheld. And when you do that, you know, good things will happen, and you learn from all your sporting. But football, and I hate to say this because they're going to quote me, but there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it because you get so many kids involved, and they're so emotional.
Yeah, it makes a bigger impact on the student, on the campus. It seems like just because of numbers.
Right.
Well, Steve, I know you're busy, and we appreciate you taking time. This again, it's the first time we've had the opportunity. We sit and have these discussions, you know, and at state events, and they're great. I love them, and but we appreciate you taking time so we can share some of these thoughts with everybody else. And again, thank you so much for your support of Dan and Dave and I, and you know what we try to do in our limited bandwidth and that. But again, thank you.
Well, I do that before I shake your hand. I'm gonna go a little here, a little here, and congratulations on the Hall of Fame. I'm so thrilled for it, and we talked about it, and like I said, putting it out there is just wonderful, and I think that's going to continue to grow. And Taps is working on theirs as well. And we're going to get ours out there, but we can appreciate even more what you guys have done because we are working on ours. And again, that's a lot of time and effort, and that means something. Okay, it means a lot to people.
Well, again, we appreciate we appreciate Taps, and thanks again.
All
right, again, Steve Prud'homme, the Associate Director of the Texas Association of Private and Parochial Schools here at Tappscon 2024.